Couldn't get on. Right.
G'day viewers, LawnLads here, back with another video. We are starting a new series today. It is all about this restoration that we're going to be doing. You've seen this mower before. This is James' Unicorn. We introduced it a few videos back. If you haven't seen that video, feel free to go back and watch that. Over winter, as I said, this is going to get a restoration. We're going to break down exactly what we're doing, explain the whole process. And so step one today is going over the mower and then starting to tear it down. So that's what we're doing. Stay tuned.
Enjoy, guys. All right, lads. So as Mick explained, we're going to be rebuilding this 20-inch Bonnar solid, which is a Unicorn. It's a great mower. It works fantastic. There's probably no need to restore this mower, but we're purely doing this because probably want to do it sort of like a bit of a period correct rebuild, so back to original colours. And also just a bit of content for the channel. We really do want to do like a series just purely on rebuilding a Bonnar because they are the most popular mower to rebuild. And what better mower to do it than the 20-inch solid Unicorn. So I think it's the best example we could pull out of the shed. So we want to bring it to you and show it to you. So plans are with this mower is, first off, it's got a good engine on it. It does work fantastic, but we want to go back to just a normal Briggs or a Honda. So I haven't decided between either of them yet. But we'll be going with either a Briggs or a Honda on this one. Obviously repaint, we're gonna sandblast this whole thing to bare metal, and we're gonna repaint the whole thing. We haven't decided between painting and powder coating, depending on what color we go. So we will decide on that later. Some correct handlebars. This has had modified handlebars as we discussed in an earlier video. So we'll be getting some original handlebars in this. Haven't decided if we're gonna be keeping the chrome or if we're gonna be painting or powder coating. So once again, it's all decisions we haven't made yet, but we will obviously look into this as we progress with the build. We'll show you through, we'll give you a parts list and what it's going to cost us, and then pretty much go through the build from start to finish. But first, before we strip it down, guys, when you are rebuilding your Scotty, first thing to do is try to get it running. Now, some of you might not be able to do that, but the reason we say to try to get it running is, one, you want to check your clutch is all good if you're going to be keeping that clutch. If it's not spinning true, you have to replace it. If you're not sure, replace it. It's just like, it's a must. Check, no funny noises when you engage the clutch here. If it's clunking, you probably need a new either cone or you need a new shaft, Pto Shaft, because there's worn down, so there's a little bit of movement there when it engages. So check that. Check all your chains, make sure they're not noisy, not too much slack on them. Replace them if you have to replace them. Check your rear roller all works correctly. Second thing we're going to do now is crack your nuts. How do I do that? So you want to hear this all the time on the Scotty page, crack your nuts. Now if you haven't got a rattle gun and you go to, you pull your chains off and you don't crack your nuts, you're not going to get the nuts off. So yeah, you're not going to get the nuts off. So do crack your nuts if you haven't got a rattle gun beforehand. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time. It's not impossible, but you're going to end up swearing a lot at your mower, and you're going to end up throwing something at it, causing a big dent in the side of the chain case probably. So yeah, do crack your nuts before you take your chains off when it's got the resistance on the actual reel and stuff like that. Make it a lot easier for you, and then start pulling it apart. So that's what we're going to get into now. So I'll show you that.
A massive tip that I'll like to share is that, especially if you're a first-time restorer, there is a lot of bolts and a lot of little knickknacks and all this type of stuff that, you know, if you're not replacing everything like we're going to, you will get confused of what that is. So, number one thing I would suggest is get you yourself some Ziploc bags, have a permanent marker. We've got a tub here that we're going to be putting everything in. You have to stay organized because this isn't a project that will take you a weekend. This is a couple of months potentially by the time all you get your parts in and all that type of stuff. So if you start to forget what certain things are, it'll be very annoying for you. One more tip before we start is going onto the Facebook page, Scott Bonnar Restorations. There is the Bible in there as well, and that will give you all the information that you need for these mowers here. So if you are, again, a first-time restorer, there is so much information in that Bible, so you find that in the file section, and then obviously that page is very useful as well, so we highly recommend you join that page. Let's get into cracking nuts. All right, we're going to talk about the tools we need right now. Number one,
a beer.
Beer of choice.
And the only stubby holder that you need in your life.
Well, there is another one that you could have. Anyway.
So, there's a lot of tools that you could have that will make it easier to work on this. But you're going to need, there's two things you're going to 100% need. You're going to need sockets, or you're going to need spanners, one or the other. So spanners are probably the better, probably like a must, I reckon, because you can't necessarily get in there everywhere with a socket. But you have to have both, is like you need that, otherwise you can't really rebuild one of these mowers. So things that are going to make it easier for you, a battery wrench. Like this is just like, there's none of this stuff, it's a lot easier. So these just make your job easier. Right, but let's get into it. So first thing is, remove this and let's crack the nuts. So first off, before we start, a lot of guys do use their metric stuff on this, but I like to use the Imperial. All these bolts are Imperial in this mower, so I'm going to use Imperial stuff. I've got it there, so there's no point of using metric. So that's not the right one. Someone's changed these little bolts, these little screws here are usually like flathead screws, but this mower's been tinkered with a bit, so someone's probably replaced it. So this is a 7/16. Ta-da. Obviously we've pulled that chain cover off now, we're looking at it. You want to be inspecting these parts as you're pulling it down. So key thing is to look at your teeth. That's probably the most important part. Checking they're not chipped, checking they aren't worn down excessively. Second thing probably is, obviously, if your chains are stretched. Our chains don't seem to be stretched at all. If they're very, very slack, potentially they're stretched. But these look okay, so probably not going to be replacing the chains. But yeah, all in all, looking at everything so far, it all looks good, so yeah.
Alright, explain to us what you mean by cracking nuts.
So cracking nuts. So what we want to do is we want to be cracking this nut, and that nut there before we start anything, because once there is no resistance on this stuff, like now there's resistance on it, it's going to hold it, so when you pull the nut back, you're going to have something to stop it from spinning. Once you pull this stuff off, there's no resistance to that. How are you meant to hold that and stop it from spinning? It's virtually impossible. This is when the spanners come in handy, because although you can get to that with a socket, you can't get to this one with a socket, so that needs a spanner. So pretty much, probably need to go this way. And this is why you need so what we need to do, this is why you need resistance. Let's go this one first. So they're still slipping a bit, so another trick, bit of timber and chuck it in the reel. So just usually by doing this, put a little bit of timber in here. You obviously want to be cautious. You don't want to be destroying your blades and damaging them. But what that will do is, it'll stop everything from spinning. Get that tight. And they're tight. Yeah,
it's not strong enough, mate.
almost going to bend my blades here. I'm really just showing this for the purpose of the video, trying to crack it with a spanner, but I usually just get the barrel gun out. It's a lot easier. Not cracking that one. God. That's cracked. That's tight.
You need more leverage, mate.
Yeah, well, this is all going to get out now. When you can't crack it, grab one of these bad boys.
I'll just stand here and hold the camera and not break a sweat.
That's it there. So yeah, that was very tight. That probably doesn't need to be that tight. But that's why if we had taken that chains off, there is no way you would have loosened that without using the impact driver. So that just shows you why you need to crack your nuts.
Did you get that one, you know?
No, I need to get that one next. With this one here, try to crack it. This one's a bit more difficult because you've got to. Because it's spinning the rear roller. Usually just doing that, sort of like just a quick movement. We usually crack it, but this one seems to be a bit stubborn again. Loosen it? No. So what I'll do is, to make it more easy for myself rather than fighting it, I just get an impact driver. It's a lot easier. But it is handy to have an impact driver with this sort of stuff. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Overly tight. And that's why the impact. A lot easier. So yeah, first thing is cracking off. Now, the next job after this is to remove this chain, so we'll just show you how to do that now. So, obviously we're taking the chains off now. Now, the person that's reinstalled this chain's done it wrong. This little one here is the one where there's a little clip in the back and that pulls out, that removes, and that obviously pulls the chain apart. Now that side's meant to be on this side. So the reason I spotted it was because it's got little dimples, and this is a solid rivet there.
So it should look like this.
So it should look like that. Yeah,
like that
much.
one.
Yeah,
but they've put it on the outside.
They've put it on the outside. So now we've got a.
For your ease, basically.
Yeah. So what you do is you usually put a little screwdriver, which I'll show you on this one, if you can see that. Screwdriver and just go crack, crack. That's it. And that's how you remove the little clip. But these little flathead screwdrivers are like the best thing to use. It's just easy to take it off. So just, yeah, usually just doing that, putting the screwdriver behind, pulling it apart, pretty easy. Push the little piece through, like that. That's it. So very, very easy to remove the chains. Pretty much, before I put it on, I'll show you the tool. So this is a little puller.
Oh, mine looks different to that.
I was waiting for something dirty there. So this is going to make your life so much more easier trying to get these little sprockets off. and trying to get the clutch off the engine. So recommend getting one of these. They're about $20 to $25 from Super Cheap Auto. There's different sizes. This is 100mm, this one here, which is the perfect size for rebuilding a Scotty. It does pretty much everything. So all it is obviously some little jaws. They draw on. You tighten this up, and what it does is literally just pulls. It obviously clamps to the shaft and pulls it away. So rather than trying to pull that off, which is going to be very, very difficult. So first thing is obviously just get the jaws onto the actual sprocket, then sort of line this up with the shaft like that. Look at that, how easy is that? So it's pretty much just tighten it up. Make sure that shaft doesn't start making contact inside the actual sprocket, because you'll destroy the sprocket. That's it. Very slowly. Done. Alright, so next thing is we want to remove this sprocket here. So to do that, we need to remove this bolt. And that bolt has a nut on the back of it there. So I've got a little spanner there now to hold it.
And you've just gone through the...
Yeah, just gone through the back there to grip it onto it, and then just pretty much just loosen it. That's it there. And then pretty much just slide it off like that. And that's a little cork as well, so that cork there, which is,
you can sort of see that it just sort of
sticks on
to the side there,
which it actually needs to be replaced because that's worn right down.
Yeah, that is real thin. You can see on the side.
It's funny because they've replaced like a lot of other things, but they haven't replaced something as simple as just the cork. That's nearly, like, it's only got a mil or two on it.
Yeah.
Which is the most I've ever seen one more down.
You'd always want to change your corks,
100%. That cork there and the one obviously in here needs to always be replaced. It's just not worth not doing it. It's a couple of bucks. So,
right, let's get that off.
Get that off now. This one we'll have to do with a spanner. It's a bit awkward to get a thing in there, so. This is why it's good to have sockets and spanners, because there's certain ones you won't get into with a socket only. And that's it. So that chain now comes off. If I can get it. All good. And that's that chain. With the chains too, they are all different, so you can't mark them up. You don't need to label them. They won't.
They're three different sizes, so
that's it.
You'll figure it out.
Different lengths, so you can't mark them up really. So then you get a closer inspection out of that sprocket, and that's in good condition. So none of that needs to be replaced. So the last thing is for sort of behind here is to pull this little tensioner off and to get that sprocket off, and then pretty much from there, the rest of it's on that side of the mower, apart from the height adjuster. So yeah. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull these handlebars off quickly to give us a bit more access to the engine and everything like that, and then we'll get on to pulling the engine off.
It's good to keep a list of stuff that you need as you go, so as you're tearing it apart you'll find things just like we did.
And don't forget them.
That's why you are organised.
That's cracked. Get on. One's cracked. I usually just like to go around and crack them all first. And then go around with the little ratchet spanner. Alright, so we've taken all the four bolts off and bolted down to the actual deck. So pretty much, it's pretty simple to get this off. All you're pretty much doing is just sliding it back. And this whole clutch assembly here will just slide off the shaft. Easier to pull them off than put them back on. Putting them back on is a bit more of a task, so you don't scratch the deck, but pretty simple. So all we do is just pick it up, and do that. That's it.
Done. It's cracked. No, I'm just joking.
I will be.
No.
It's looking okay so far, but that's not, I don't believe it till I strip this whole thing back to bare metal, all the way along here, and check it all. Before we move on, another thing I want to show you is just this shaft. So, that comes off now. So, another thing to check for when you're doing a rebuild is these little rubbers. If they're really cracked and brittle, should replace it. This one here looks like it's actually been replaced.
That looks pretty
new. Yeah. So, like these are like what, $5-10 bucks each. Yeah. I'm not going to replace that. I think it's fine. There's no point in replacing something that doesn't need replaced. Truss pad, this one is it's a little bit worn down on the sides here. You can see that.
Yep.
So I'd probably replace it. You could probably get away for reusing it, but it is quite worn. So I probably would replace that and reuse it. Next thing is the Pto shaft. So regarding the key, where did you put that key?
There was another one that I just put in here somewhere.
It's got a little bit of movement in that. So the things we like to check for, there's two things. So the keyways, it's got I mean, it's not much. It's probably like, you can actually sort of see it. It's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit loose, like it's sort of, it's actually stuck in there now, but it's a little bit loose. So, but the other thing is you can see that wear there. There's like a little taper on the actual shaft. That's just, obviously there's a slight imbalance. I'm talking slight. That's nothing to really probably worry about. You know, it's 50 years old, so what we need to do is we need to pull this clutch off the engine shaft. So what we need to do, we need to remove this outer ring first. When we do that, this cone will slide straight out. It's all there is a little spring in there, and that puts the pressure on the shaft just to sort of move this cone in and out. You can settle that. So you need a little screwdriver, and you need a 1/2 inch spanner at the back, and then you just need to loosen it pretty much. So what we've got here, guys, is we've got our clutch cone. I reckon this has been replaced. I don't think that's original. It's like the aluminium.
Yeah.
See, it's aluminium. You can hear it. It's like cast iron. I think the original ones are cast iron, which you will see on a lot of most of them. I think it's a replacement. So yeah, this has been replaced at some stage, which is a good thing, because that probably means that I don't need to replace it. That's why it's not wobbling. It's obviously replacing things on the engine. So next thing is we need to remove this part here. So we've removed our outer clutch ring, we've removed the cone, and we've removed the spring, and all the bolts and screws. Bolts, whatever you want to call them. Bolts. So now we need to remove this part. So first thing we need to do is, we've got a cotter pin, which is at the top here. You can see there. We need to back that cotter pin off, and we need to just put a little bit of force and just tap it, and that will release it from the actual drive shaft. I love this thing. How easy is that?
It is no stress.
It's good, isn't it? So that's your cotter pin nut there. We need to obviously check the cotter pin as well for wear, which we'll do when we take the clutch off. So we just need to get a little screwdriver or something. Yeah, and just tap it. Just to release that tension from the actual drive shaft. I'm going to use pliers on the sparky, and that's what we do. That's it. You would have seen that pop in there slightly. So that's released tension off the shaft. You won't get it off if you don't do that. So same thing as before. Slide that in like that. Back it off a bit. Tighten it up. Make sure everything's aligned straight. So make sure everything's sort of straight on, the shaft straight, because you don't want to wear the inside of your clutch out. And that's why you need to buy yourself one of these tools. That's it. That's that side of the clutch off. The next thing to do is to take the cotter pin out. And get it out. Yeah. And check it for wear. Now that needs to be replaced. So you can sort of see there.
Oh wow.
Been worn at an angle.
Yep.
So we will be replacing that cotter pin.
Add it to the list.
Add it to the list there. So pretty much on the next episode, we will be stripping down pretty much all this part here, all these parts here. So all your clutch assembly here and your PTO bearing holder, and pretty much pulling down the rest of the mower. So we'll do the reel, we'll do removing the rear roller and all that sort of stuff as well. We'll pull it all apart. We'll take one side off and pull apart from there. We'll do that, we'll do all the fun stuff, we'll pull it down to nothing, and then we'll tell you what we're going to be replacing on this mower.
So yeah, thanks for watching. Like obviously, what we're doing here is specific to this mower. We're pointing out the things that we're finding, so it might not be as relevant to you depending on your mower, but these are key things for you to discover on your or by yourself. So hopefully you have picked up something along the way. But anyway, this is going to be a series. This is going to be going on for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months or something, depending on how long it takes us.
Oh yeah, she's going to take some time. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna do this over the winter period. So there's no rush. We want to do this right. Take your time. There's no rush in doing it. So yeah.
So follow along. Please like the video. It really helps us. Subscribe to our channel. We're going to be doing a giveaway very soon. We're just in the final stages of organising that. So I don't think we've actually said that. But let's not spoil it. But there will be a giveaway very shortly. So follow us on Instagram, because that's probably where we'll do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for watching.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, lads.